I think one of the things a lot of kids today are not taking into consideration is if you transition, you can never fully change sex. So I knew that if I attempted to transition, I would be a 5'2" man with a vagina. That did definitely deter me for a long time. But then the narrative that I was hearing from trans activists and even medical providers was that if I didn't transition, I would probably kill myself. And given that I was someone who had already suffered from mental health issues in the past, I didn't want to risk that. I thought medical transition was my best option. At the age of 28, I just felt like I didn't have another choice. I tried being a woman for so long and I wasn't happy, so I decided to go full steam ahead with my medical transition. I started off by getting a prescription for testosterone, and to do that I called up Planned Parenthood because I'd heard they provided gender affirming services, and I thought I would have to go through some kind of process to get the testosterone, whether it was psychological evaluation or a certain number of visits with psychiatrists, etc. But instead what happened is I talked on the phone for 30 minutes with a doctor I'd never met in person, and I got prescribed testosterone over the phone. I had asked for a low dose because I told the doctor at Planned Parenthood that I was a semi-professional singer and that my voice was important to me, and the doctor prescribed me what I thought was a low dose, but then later talking to other people, they had started at half the dose that I was on. I was prepared for my voice to get deeper, but nobody told me it would be painful to speak. Nobody told me it would feel like there was a barrier in my throat when I would go to vocalize, whether it was for singing or even just being around my friends at a social gathering. It was hard to like project my voice over music, and no one warned me that that was a possibility. I was afraid to be angry or complain about what had happened at all because I didn't want to say anything that would be like damaging to the trans community or prevent anyone else from transitioning. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut for a while, but then eventually the pain and just the gravity of what had happened, that I would never have my natural singing voice back ever again, just hit me, and that was one of the things that led me to sort of start questioning the gender ideology and whether affirmative care is really appropriate for most people. Now, like a year and a half later, I look in the mirror and at least from a superficial level, my body and face look the same as they did before transitioning. But also during this period where I was kind of detoxing from the testosterone, I started to look into the studies about gender transitions, and I realized I'd been in an echo chamber and I'd been told some really harmful things by trans activists that totally distorted my view of the world and my gender or my biological sex. I just stopped believing in gender identity. Once I let go of that, it was actually extremely freeing, and I was able to accept myself as a female, as a woman, without attaching any kind of toxic, negative gender stereotype to that. Because the truth with what's called transition, I actually call it body modification and mutilation, because it's impossible for humans to change sex. So by affirming gender dysphoria and telling someone they actually can be the opposite sex, it's only going to encourage and enable that person to mutilate their body and sterilize themselves.